Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and in my Bundt Cake Challenge journey to bake all the Bundt cakes in the Bundt Cake Collection book from Bake From Scratch. Today's Bundt Cake, I'm doing this gorgeous, simple peach pound cake. Look how beautiful that is. And what's great about this is because it's the end of summer, peaches are in abundance right now. So the difference between this one is it uses coconut flour in addition to all-purpose flour. It also has a cream cheese swirl in there. And so you're going to need some cream cheese softened, and I'll talk more about that later. And then it has a nice buttermilk glaze that goes on top of it. So you do need fresh peaches. I'm doing something a little different. A couple weeks ago, I got peaches and they were getting too ripe, too fast, and so what I did was I cut them in half, I pitted them, and then I froze them. So I'm using those today. They're very soft, so they're not firm like, you know, you would get fresh peaches, so we're gonna see how it works. It might be a little too wet, the batter, so I might have to add in a little bit more flour to it, but we're gonna see how it works. It will definitely give an amazing peach flavor because these are super ripe and sweet. So we're gonna use those. So grab your butter, grab your eggs, grab your buttermilk, your mixer. You are going to need a hand mixer for this if you don't want to dirty another mixing bowl. And let's get started. It's a really simple Bundt cake. You are going to need a 15-cup Bundt pan. So the traditional Bundt pan is what you want to use. So this is the right size Bundt pan. They have other like designs that are probably the 15 cup, but you do want a bigger Bundt pan. Spray this very liberally with either Cook and Spray or Baker's Joy, or spray butter with flour. Make sure you get into all the grooves, and you're also going to want to preheat your oven to 325 degrees because Bundt cakes are so thick and deep that you want to cook it low and slow. So let's get started. I'm excited about this one. It sounds like the perfect summertime Bundt cake using all those peaches that you find at the farmer's market. So let's get started. Okay, so we're gonna get started. You need to have your eggs, butter, cream cheese, and buttermilk or whole milk out to room temperature. So I had these out for about a half an hour, and now we're gonna get started. So I'm just gonna set my buttermilk aside. I'm actually using whole milk today because if you remember my previous videos, I never have buttermilk. So we're just going to start measuring out our wet ingredients. First, we're going to cream our butter and sugar. So in the bowl of a stand mixer, you're going to add in 1.5 cups of butter, or 340 grams, which is about 3 sticks of butter. And this is unsalted butter. I always like to use unsalted butter in my bacon because you always add salt to it, and it's easier to control the amount of salt than already have it in. So you can always add in more or less, whatever you need. So you got your butter in there, and now we're going to add in your sugar. So you just need white sugar. You are going to need 2 cups. So yes, it does make, it sounds like quite a bit of sugar, but you are making a big Bundt cake, so this is quite large of a Bundt cake. So let's add in our 4 cups of sugar. Not 4 cups, 2 cups of sugar, 400 grams. No, that's what you're writing. And then littlest guy is here trying to help me. He likes to help bake. He's actually the #1 taste tester, as with all my kids are #1 taste testers. Okay, so I'm gonna make a mess. So we got our butter and our granulated white sugar in our mixing bowl, and we're just going to pop that onto our stand mixer, fitted with the paddle attachment. And you're gonna start off nice and slow so that you don't end up in a snowstorm of sugar. And you're just going to mix this on low speed first, and then you're gonna speed it up onto medium speed for about 6 to 8 minutes, and you're gonna scrape the sides of the bowl as necessary until it's light and fluffy. Do not rush this part of the creaming part. You really want that butter and sugar nice and creamed and fluffy in order to get a nice, light, airy cake. So do not skip this part. Do not skimp on it. Make sure it's 6 to 8 minutes. Go do a load of laundry, do some dishes, fold some clothes, go wash your face, whatever you have to do. Just let it go and go do something and then come back. And you'll be amazed at how different it looks when you let it fluff up and mix and beat for a full 6 to 8 minutes. Your butter sugar mixture has been whipping for about 6 to 8 minutes. This is what it should look like. Look how fluffy it is, and it's gotten lighter in color, which is great. So now you want to scrape down the sides of your bowl, and with your mixer speed on low, we are going to put in our eggs. So ideally you're going to crack your eggs into a separate bowl so that you don't ever get shells in there in case you're a sloppy egg cracker. So I'm just going to crack it into my bowl. 5 of them you need, and then I'm going to keep my mixer speed on low so it continues to whip up, and then add in your eggs one at a time. And then we're going to add in some almond extract. So mixer speed on low, crack your eggs and add them in one at a time, making sure you mix it well, let it beat well for about a minute before you add in the next egg. Okay, so now that you've got your wet ingredients, the butter, the sugar, your eggs, and your almond extract all creamed and light and fluffy, it may look like it's separated, but that's okay because everything will come together when we add in our dry ingredients. So our dry ingredients are pretty basic: flour and salt with the addition of coconut flour. So you don't need a lot of coconut flour, you only need 30 grams, but I always keep this on hand anyway because it's really good to use in replace like part of the flour. So there's different things on the back, and it's great for gluten-free baking. So I always like to keep it on hand just to have it, you know, it doesn't make it like tropical flavored, so don't think you're gonna be biting into it and tasting like all this coconut flavor, because that's just not the case. It won't taste like coconut or tropical, anything like that. So we're going to get out a mix in a small bowl, and we're gonna weigh out our flour because that's the best way. And we're gonna do 2 3/4 cup or 344 grams of all-purpose flour. And we're just gonna measure that in there. And I forgot to talk about the eggs because I read a very interesting thing the other day about the eggs that are available nowadays, is that the yolks aren't as big as they used to be. So the cakes, what you bake with eggs, are not getting as much yolk as they used to. So it's not as like creamy and rich as the cakes used to be. You're getting a lot more white. So I found that interesting. That's why when you read these books, like the Bake From Scratch books, they have the eggs in grams also. So you have how many grams you should have, which I find interesting, that the egg yolks are not as bigger as they used to be. Okay, anyway, back to our flour. So we have our all-purpose flour in there, and now we're going to add in some coconut flour. Again, you only need about 30 grams of coconut flour, and it has a slight coconut smell to it, but it's not like a coconut. Biting into a coconut, you're not going to get like a tropical vibe going on there at all. It's just nice to add in a little bit of extra flavor, and it does help with like gluten-free baking if you were doing that route, which I don't do that route. So we're just going to add in 30 grams, and you can find this anywhere at any grocery store. found it at my local grocery store. And some salt. Don't forget to add in the salt. So with your mixer speed on low, you're going to alternate between the flour and your buttermilk. So you need a half a cup of buttermilk or whole milk, whatever you have. So you're going to alternate flour, buttermilk, flour, beginning and ending with buttermilk. I like to split this in thirds and split the buttermilk in half. So you're going to keep your mixer speed on low, and then you're going to add that in, and then we'll add in the rest of the ingredients. So now that you got all your dry ingredients in there, now comes time to fold in your peaches. So the recipe calls for fresh peaches. I don't really have fresh peaches right now. I mean, the peaches that I have, they were fresh, but they were frozen, so they are giving off a tremendous amount of liquid, but they're super sweet. So I'm just going to add this whole thing in. You need about 2 cups of diced peeled fresh peaches. I didn't peel mine. They got the skin on them. The skin is kind of coming off really easily. So I'm just going to pour these into my mixing bowl, and then I'm just going to take a look at it and see that if it needs any additional flour or anything like that. If the batter is just too moist, I'm going to add in a little bit more flour. Okay, so I just folded in the peaches, and honestly it doesn't look that liquidy or wet as I thought it would. So I am just going to take this off of my mixer, clean off my paddle attachment, and then we're going to get the cream cheese swirl going on. So you are going to need a separate mixing bowl. And I like to use a hand mixer for this, so I don't have to dirty a whole another huge mixing bowl. And I don't have to transfer the batter to another mixing bowl. But if you don't have a hand mixer and only a stand mixer, then you're going to need to transfer this batter to another bowl and then clean out this mixing bowl. But that sounds like a lot of work for me, so I just use my hand mixer, which is easier to do. So we're just going to clean off of our paddle attachment very well. And of course, you're going to give it a nice mix. And make sure you get into the bottom of it too to make sure everything is well incorporated. Set that off to the side, and then with your hand mixer you are going to get your cream cheese ready, which should already be softening. And now the recipe calls for a half a cup of cream cheese, which was a little bit more than like a half a pack of cream cheese. So it's a little bit more than that, which, you know my stance on that. I hate when they do that. But you are going to use another half a cup for the glaze. So I'm just going to use a full block of cream cheese. I'm using what I need for the cake, for the bundt cake. And then whatever I have left over, I'm just going to use for the glaze. Whether it's a little less or a little bit more, I'm going to make it work. So I have in my cream cheese right here. And then you're going to add in, let's see what else. Your sugar and flour, and then your remaining buttermilk. So the sugar comes, and all you need for the sugar is you need about 67 grams of sugar. I have a big chunk. We'll see. 67 grams of sugar goes in the bowl, and this is again like a cheesecake filling. So when you cut into it, you see that nice little swirl, and it's going to be really yummy and pretty. And then you also are going to need your flour. So this is going to make, the flour makes it, it's a thickener, so it's going to thicken it up so that when you cut into it, it doesn't just like pool out. So for the flour, you need just 16 grams. You don't need a lot of flour. And then you're also going to need some more buttermilk or whole milk. If you're using whole milk, you can use that also. Just get that off to the side. And then I'm going to mix this up for about 3 to 4 minutes until light and fluffy, and then get the buttermilk in there. then remember my little trick to clean off your paddles, because you do not want to have to scrape that all off. It's a tedious job. In order to clean off your paddles, you just place it up against the side, turn it on high, make sure your bowl is deep, and then that cleans it off really easily. And then your your beaters are nice and clean. So I'm just gonna grab my buttermilk. And then you're just going to weigh in just 30 grams of buttermilk. I'm using whole milk because I never buy buttermilk. I find it actually really difficult to find around here. I don't know why. They don't have like full fat buttermilk around here. It's only like low fat, which is weird. I want the full fat, so I feel like whole milk is better. But all right, mix this up again until light and creamy, and then we're gonna start preparing our pan. You saw I cleaned my beaters again, and see how clean they are? You don't have to worry about scraping. So now, okay, throw it away. So now we're going to get our Bundt pan, which should already be prepared. Your 15-cup Bundt pan should already be prepared with spread. Now comes time to fill your Bundt pan. I sprayed it and sprayed it again, and I'm going to get my batter in there. This is a little different than the previous swirled Bundt cakes. This one says you're going to create a well in the batter and then pour the cream cheese mixture in. So we'll see how that goes. So you're going to pour about half of the batter into your prepared Bundt pan. And then we're going to make a well and pour in the cream cheese and then swirl it around. So we'll see how that goes. About half, I guess it should say. So we're just going to flatten it out as best we can. And then it says to create a well. So just dig out like you're digging a sandcastle. Dig it out a little bit. Make a little indent. And then you're going to take your cream cheese, which is a little more liquidy with the addition of the milk. It's a little more thinner than the ones in the past. So it should be a little bit easier to pour into that well. And you're just going to put it into that well all the way around. And then smooth it out as best you can. And then we'll put the other batter on top. So this is a little different than what we've done in the past. But as always, we trust the process in baking. If you weigh out everything, if you do what the recipe calls for, it should come out perfect. It might not look as perfect as the picture, but it will come out tasting just as delicious. Okay, got it all in there. Just gonna spread it out a little bit. I don't want to waste any of it. Waste not, want not. And then we're going to put the rest of the batter right on top. And just smooth it out so that the cream cheese is covered as best you can. And you want to make sure you clean off your rubber spatula so that you don't waste any of that delicious batter. And then you're going to get whatever tool you use to swirl it around, which I'm using a knife today because that's what I have. You're going to gently swirl the batter and cream cheese mixture. Actually, I'm not using a knife. Do you see that? That was just a little too deep for me. I like to use a skewer. So let me go grab a skewer and then we'll swirl it around. Okay, so got my skewer. I find this works better than a knife. And then we're just going to swirl it around as best we can. You don't want to go all the way to the bottom. You just want to go as deep as the cream cheese layer is in there. And you're really going to have to swirl it because this is thick. So swirl it all different ways, counterclockwise, clockwise, up and down. Just give it a nice spin so that it kind of incorporates through it. And it looks really pretty when you cut it. So just go up and down all different ways. Okay, so when you're all ready with that, it goes into the oven. This is going to cook for a while. It's going to cook for about an hour and a half at 325 degrees. If it starts to brown too much on the top, you're going to cover it with foil and make sure you rotate it about halfway through to make sure it's even browning. And then we'll check on it in an hour and a half. The bundt cake has been in the oven for over an hour and a half, and so we're going to take our bundt cake thermometer and test it to see if it's done. And it looks to be about done, so I'm going to take it out and let it cool in the pan for about 20 minutes before flipping it out. Okay, so the bundt cake is out, it's cooled, it's flipped over, and now it's time to make the nice glaze. So in my bowl I have the rest of the block of cream cheese, whatever that amount is, and then I have about a tablespoon of butter and some powdered sugar, and I'm just going to mix it up until it's nice and creamy. Basic when you go to frost it. It's a very dense cake. It's very heavy. It's a very hefty cake. So you're just gonna frost it however you want. I just kept my frosting simple. You can make it a little thinner by adding in some heavy cream or milk if you want it to be more of a drapey look. And if you want to get fancy, pipe it on there, make it look pretty, and you can do that also. You could probably also add in some extract if you really like the taste of the almond extract. You can add in some almond extract to it to really bump up the flavor and complement the inside of the cake. But I'm just going to leave it pretty basic for this one. I usually don't put a lot of glazes or frostings on my bundt cake because the actual bundt cake itself is so delicious that I kind of feel like you don't really need it. But this one, I'm trying to follow the recipe and keep it as close to the recipe in the book as I can. So we're gonna put a little bit on there. And I mean, it is a nice creaminess to add to the texture of the cake. Okay, so there we go. And now comes the best part, is cutting into it. Let's cut into this beauty. Don't mind my blue hands. I was making a cake, which you probably will see in a couple days. So let's cut into it. Hopefully it is super moist with all of the peach filling that I put in there, the peaches. And hopefully you can see the nice swirl. You never know how it's going to turn out. Ooh, look at that. It looks so delicious and creamy and moist. Now let's take a bite. You could see the cheesecake swirl. You could see the chunks of peaches in there. Oh, it's delicious. It's still a little warm. I don't think I let it cool quite enough. So let's taste it. It's still a little bit warm, so I'm going to use a fork with it. But oh my goodness, it looks so good. It reminded me of like peaches and cream vibes going on here, but it looks so good. If you love peaches, this is a winner. It's definitely like a peaches and cream vibe. And it's super moist, obviously. And it's really, really delicious. And it's a perfect, perfect way to use up all those summertime peaches that you have. You go to the farmer's market, you see all those beautiful peaches, get them and make this recipe because it's so good. You will not be sorry. Make sure you follow me, subscribe, and like this video. And stay tuned for more bundt cakes in my bundt cake challenge journey and more cooking videos. And I will see you next time.